Good morning, everybody. Sunday, the 24th of May, 2020. Cornholio times are still with us here. Very fatiguing. Going on about 10 weeks of dealing with this whole situation. Hard to believe it started in February. Hard to believe February 16th I did a update telling people and advising people it might be a good idea to prep for the storm that may, in all likelihood, come to a neighborhood near you, and boy, did it. Well, it's time to move forward with the EcoInvestment update. We're coming up to that big fork in the road now where we're going to test the Rosie Girls theory here, the working theory, the working thesis that I've had for months is that there's more that ails the economy than just cornholio. And I hearken back once again to August of 2019 when we had a signaling by one of the most reliable indicators that there is recession ahead. And of course that indicator was the inversion between the 2-year yield and the 10-year U.S. obligations, and it's something that rarely happens, but it's almost fail-safe in predicting trouble. And I will remind you that this August signal came months and months and months and months before cornholio was even dreamed of. So the big fork in the road is, will we recover back, and that recession signal the recession that is now over? Or as we will recover, we will see that the pieces of the puzzle don't quite fit back into place. And I'm kind of suspecting that it's going to be the latter and not the former. And here's why. When you let's put this visualization in your head. Have you ever watched one of the channels that does dominoes? And of course, dominoes are the little rectangular plastic, would you say them, squares? I don't want to call them rectangles, that can be set up so that if you tap one, the rest of the dominoes go over. And there's some people that are really domino wizards, and they can set up dominoes. They can take a floor of a huge auditorium, and I mean a big thing, and they can set up a domino run that can last for 10 to 15 minutes. As the dominoes flare out and knock down multiple rows and then come together. It's quite a sight to see. Now the thing is, when you knock an economy down, that is similar to the dominoes being kicked over. It happens in a very, very, very short period of time, and the show's over, okay? The problem is, think about what it takes to set up the dominoes for that run. Sometimes it takes over a week or two to do a 15-minute show with millions of dominoes. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of putting things together, and things don't always go well when the dominoes get hit. Sometimes they can malfunction, and in a lot of ways, that's the way the economy is. My point is, it takes a long time and it takes a lot of synchronization to get an economy running to the point that it was in February of 2020 before all of this broke loose on February 12th, I believe, was the high point. Now we've come to this point where we just basically gutted the economy, a kick in the gut, over a period of 6 weeks or so, 8 weeks, 10 weeks. Now we've reached a point we want to put the toothpaste back in the tube. We want to start setting up the domino show, and it's not going to go up in 15 minutes, okay? And that is my whole point. It takes time for things to synchronize, supply lines, people to return to restaurants, people to return to movie theaters. There's a lot of huge capacity out here. Malls, shopping malls, things like, there's a lot of huge capacity out here that might have to shrink a lot because the demand of people willing to partake in those activities, the demand curve of people wanting to go to malls, wanting to go to theaters, wanting to do restaurants and things or vacations, cruise ships, will rise slowly over time. Okay, it takes time to restore people's confidence. But the problem is, with the rentals, the leases that restaurants pay, the fixed costs that they have to incur every month, whether a cruise ship moves 1 foot or not, they don't disappear. Okay, loans that have to be paid on a monthly basis for the building and costs of the cruise ship, the maintenance, docking fees, cleaning fees, all those type of fees. They don't ramp up slowly. They stay at the same high level. So you have demand starting to rise, and you have your costs, and sometimes it just doesn't make it. There's not enough capital, there's not enough money to see it through to the point that a cruise ship can leave dock with enough passengers to make it economically viable, or a restaurant can serve enough customers to make it economically viable. So we're going to have what I call this golden little period here, where we will have demand begin to rise, and then we have two forces at work that are going to be headwinds that are going to try to stifle that rise in demand. One, of course, is going to be fears of people's personal money when the paycheck enhancement programs run out. We're already seeing evidence of businesses opening, and the workers are saying, no, I'm making $1,000 a week right now through July. You take your job. Now, they may regret that, take your job and stick it. They may regret that over time. For the time being, a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. Okay, not everybody thinks ahead to the future for securing a job. Okay, so we do have the worries about monetary. We also have the worries about cornholio and resurfacing, and that's always going to be in people's mind. This thing is like the equivalent of Pearl Harbor. It hit this nation, and cornholio will continue to dominate the headlines. There'll be flare-ups here and there, and people will be like, oh man, here we go again, or okay, they got it under control. New York's out of lockdown now. Let's go. Here we go. We're rising again. Just this morning, Arkansas reported that cases are on the rise, and some places like Chicago have never gotten it under control, in Baltimore and Washington, D.C., and cities like that. So it's going to be an ongoing battle, okay? And when you go to a place like Las Vegas, if you don't have the great experience, because you have to wear a mask all the time, and it's a pain, it's a sanitization of everything. Everything is between plastic shields at a casino. You're losing the whole gestalt, the whole experience of a shared experience like Las Vegas and casinos. Yay, I won a jackpot. Don't go close to that person that won the jackpot, and things like that, sanitation, pools and all kinds of issues. So it's going to be a degraded experience for people, and therein lies a whole nother risk of turning off people. And of course, we also have the risk that people have had 10 weeks to shift gears on their life and go in new directions. Maybe they want to be camping. Maybe they want to, as demographics show, maybe they want to be the hell out of the city now and hit the road and not be around the city life anymore. A lot of, this thing has a lot of disruptors to it. There's a lot of moving parts on here. There's a lot of things to get a handle on that have to be figured out. In the meantime, of course, the U.S. equity markets have been supported by a Federal Reserve that has liquefied a lot of bank and a lot of institutional portfolios by buying, basically billions of dollars a day of assets. And of course, we don't know how great those assets are, putting cash in their hands, but there aren't a lot of alternatives. So the stock market continues to suck in a lot of that money. Now, the problem is, of course, that we have an economy that's kind of one way, and we have a market that's the other way. And that's never a recipe for a good outcome, I guarantee you that. Do you remember in the old days, those of you who are older, you would go into a Sears, Roebuck, or a department store, and they would demonstrate vacuum cleaners by having a vacuum turned on at the door, and the long hose with the metal barrel or plastic barrel would be pointed upward, and they would take a beach ball and float it on top of that column of air. And it was quite a sight to see this beach ball just spinning in the air above this column of air. It demonstrated the power at least in reverse of a vacuum cleaner. And it was kind of an interesting sight, especially if you were a kid. Now, that beach ball has no problem staying on top of that column of air until the cows come home. Okay, but at the end of the day, once you start withdrawing that air, i.e. withdrawing federal spending, as they did in 2018, and you suddenly have a real smash down, that's where you really get into troubles, when they take the punch bowl away, which they must do sooner or later. Well, I don't want to be caught when that party ends and heading for the smash up on that, but you get the idea. Between the domino theory that I've explained today and the beach ball theory, you get a pretty good idea of the headwinds that lay ahead for this economy. We're going to have some good times coming up for sure, but will we ever achieve that smooth synchronization of there was evidence coming into 2020? It's really hard to say. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for listening today. Have yourselves a wonderful, wonderful Memorial Day. Remember those who have sacrificed so much for us. It is a very solemn day, too. And also, if you enjoy the content here, you enjoy the analogies, the explanations that gear things to the average person to understand, go ahead and please share this out and give me a thumbs up. I would really, really appreciate it. Okay, take care, everybody.